The father of medicine, Hippocrates, from the very, very beginnings of his work over 2,000 years ago, said that the soul is present in every illness and in every organ. And all of the people that he worked with believed the same thing. One of the founding fathers of psychology, Carl Jung, also said the soul is present in every mental health concern, every action, every behavior, every aspect of who we are. But where is it now? Where is it in traditional healing? It's nowhere. I was a medical school professor. It was not taught. I don't remember the word soul used once when I was in my training. To me, what has been left out of healing is that individualized part of us, that individual unique aspect of who we are. And that's why I'm here to kind of bring it back to life, bring it back to the forefront, because we have, as a modernized society, we have left out the most ancient part of who we are. And that is really, I think, why the state of the world is where it is. We have become so disconnected.
Yes. Hi, I'm Glennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe. You know, ever since I started doing this podcast in January of 2025, I find that a lot of the conversations that we've been having, I've been prefacing by saying that these are difficult times. We are all feeling challenged, and no matter what side of the fence you sit on in terms politically, what your feelings are, I think you can feel that the energy is such that it can be debilitating. And it's exhausting from an energetic perspective. And I've had people that have come on and talked about the realities of what's going on right now and how it impacts us emotionally. But let's talk a little bit about how it might impact us from a soul perspective. So many people think that when you're talking about soul, that you're talking about something that's woo-woo. And maybe that could be true for you non-believers of soul philosophy. But it's not woo-woo. There's actually science behind it. And I'm so glad to have with me today my friend, Dr. Katherine Kelly. She's been on the show before. She is a psychologist that has been traditionally trained, but she's had many aha moments about the importance of the soul when it comes to our overall emotional wellness. Dr. Katherine Kelly, thank you for being on the Vibe Living podcast. It's so great to have you here today.
It is always good to be here, and it's wonderful to see your face again.
Oh, my dear friend. You know, it's interesting. I was thinking we have known each other for over 15 years. And through those years, there have been all kinds of things that have happened, and we've alluded to them here and there, but nothing that seems to be so overall encompassing in terms of how everyone is feeling for right now. And you're talking about and doing something that really can not only help, but give people a different kind of understanding in terms of why they're feeling the way they're feeling. And that is the whole soul health model that you created and your philosophy that you've created. So tell us a little bit about, first of all, let's give this definition for all of our new listeners. Welcome, new listeners. I say new listeners because now we're in the top 7%. What is soul? Your definition of what a soul is, and why does it matter in terms of our overall emotional wellness?
There's nothing I love talking about more. And like you said, it is not a woo thing. You know, it can be for a lot of situations, but the soul to me is just the essence of who we are. It is that very essence, it's the energetic essence of who we are. I don't talk about religion. I don't talk about politics. I talk about who a person is. And, you know, I've been doing mental health work for 37 years. And it's one of those things where over my training years, over my years of actually practicing, I have come to understand that out of the 8.6 billion people on this planet, no two are alike. And so it's just really important for us to understand that the soul, that essence, that very unique essence of who we are, it really, and I've been saying this a lot to people, is that it drives everything forward and it holds everything back. So in other words, if we are struggling in life, it's because it's the health of the soul. It's the state of the soul that is struggling. And you couldn't have said it better when you said that at, the beginning of this year, you've been saying a lot, wow, okay, the state of the world. And, this is something I've been really helping people understand. And I can tell you every single day, almost every client is bringing up the state of the world right now. And I think had I not understood the soul, had I not really understood that depth of who we are and why this is so viscerally affecting all of us, in so many ways, not just one way, but in so many ways, I think I would have had a hard time being a psychologist right now. And it's not that I'm not having a hard time being a psychologist because, this is a tough thing. But the soul to me is the essence of who we are. When there is anything going on outside of us, it is going to impact us energetically, especially for empaths.
But I think we both have agreed before in the past, I am definitely an empath. And
Yes.
that just speaks volumes in terms of why certain things are bothering me or I'm reacting to certain things. Like right before
Yeah.
we came on, I was like, why do I feel like I want to cry? Other people's personas, or, I feel certain energies that aren't necessarily mine at that moment. So, yeah, I definitely understand that concept.
Well, and I said with 8.6 billion people on this planet,
Hmm.
there is no way that the collective energies of those 8.6 billion people who are disrupted and disturbed and uncomfortable and upset, there's no way that we can't be experiencing all of that because it is all energy. And to me, the soul is energy, but wow, is it permeable right now? It is very susceptible to experiencing what everybody else on this planet is experiencing. So when I talk about soul health, I talk about the health of that inner part of us, that deepest part of us. There's a webinar coming up that I'm putting on basically mastering the art and soul of self-care, but it all has to do with that inner part of us. It has to do with that essence of who we are. And to me, soul healing, now I'm a big acronyms person. And so I came up with an acronym for soul health to explain what it is. And it's basically seeking our unlimited light. So the word soul, seeking our unlimited light, healing every aspect of life through the healing of body, mind, and soul.
Wow.
So it's one of those things where soul health encompasses everything. And, traditional medicine and traditional mental health only focus on the body or the mind. But what is fascinating about this, I'm kind of a word nerd and a historical nerd, but the father of medicine, Hippocrates, from the very, very beginnings of his work over 2,000 years ago, said that the soul is present in every illness and in every organ. And all of the people that he worked with believed the same thing. One of the founding fathers of psychology, Carl Jung, also said the soul is present in every mental health concern, every action, every behavior, every aspect of who we are. But where is it now? Where is it in traditional healing? It's nowhere. I was a medical school professor. It was not taught. I don't remember the word soul used once when I was in my training. To me, what has been left out of healing is that individualized part of us, that individual, unique aspect of who we are. And that's why I'm here to kind of bring it back to life, bring it back to the forefront, because we have, as a modernized society, we have left out the most ancient part of who we are. And that is really, I think, why the state of the world is where it is. We have become so disconnected.
Yes, it's intrinsic. And it makes me think sometimes that maybe it was left out on purpose so that there are those who are in the know and the rest are not. And therefore, it's easier to control. But you and I both know that from a karma perspective, that's definitely not a thing that's a good thing to do. And one of the things I'm so glad that you're here talking about this is that information is power.
Yes.
And then learning how to act on that information is powerful.
Right.
So, if you could share with us what the soul health model is that you created and what it means and why
Yeah.
you think it's so important.
Yes. So, and what I will say is the soul health model has actually even expanded. And so, the soul health model, I'm going to show it real quick here for those of you who can see this. And it's basically an image of a tree. It has 10 key branches of the human condition that every single human on this planet at some point in their lives has to look at or is challenged by. And the soul aspect of it is the sustainable part of basically the trunk, the part that sustains everything else. And so, just like a tree, you can't have branches without the trunk. It really does not happen. The trunk is the substance of what that tree is. It is the anchor, it is the groundedness. And one of the things I tell people, I'm going to show this other image as we're talking because I think it will be very helpful because of the state of the world right now. This is one of my other favorite images to show is that this is how we often feel and how in the world are we going to rebuild to get to this, especially with the state of the world right now? And I want to give you an example of this because I can go through these 10 branches in a few moments. I want to help you understand a little bit about what's going on for people individually as a result of what is happening in the world. So, the essence of who we are contains every aspect of who we are. It contains every memory, every trauma, every emotion, everything we've ever had. And this may seem very far out there for some people, but it makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because there were a lot of people traumatized after this last election. And people didn't even know why they were traumatized. They just knew they felt it and they were scared in one way or another. They were disturbed or uncomfortable in one way or another. And I tried to help people understand that whatever button was getting pushed, whatever wound was coming to the surface, whatever fear was coming forth, it was the soul's way of saying, this is exactly what needs to be healed within me. So, again, that mirror of what's happening on the outside really can trigger us to do the healing that we need to do as individuals from the inside. And I'm trying so much to say to people, yes, knowledge is power, but healing is power as well. So I'm trying to urge people to think about whatever is getting triggered, whatever is coming up within them because of the state of the world, because of the chaos, because of the traumas, including all of these or these weather events that we're having, or the earthquake that just happened a few days ago. It's bringing stuff up for people. And I'm trying to help people understand that the soul contains all of the traumas from this lifetime and all past lifetimes. And so, whatever comes up in this lifetime gives us the opportunity to explore that, determine what it is, and heal, even if it is multiple lifetimes before, to the point where you clear the slate. Because not only is this a tumultuous time, this is actually such an amazing opportunity for healing. Now, I know that can feel really terrible in the midst of all of this to think that something good can come out of what we're seeing. But as a psychologist that does soul healing work, this is like the prime opportunity. This is really this purging of a lot of the stuff that we've carried for so many generations.
There's another old saying, there's no testimony without a test. When you have challenges, it's just another opportunity to see, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, work it out. We don't get to the other side of something that's good unless you went first through the bad. I mean, all of those things feed to the fact that many times these journeys that we go through that don't feel good, that are uncomfortable, that are negative, that are challenging, can, if used properly, fine tune us to be better humans.
Right. Absolutely. And this is sort of the reckoning. This is that time of reckoning, but it's reckoning within ourselves too. It sounds like a Pollyanna way to take what's happening in the world, but it is such an opportunity for us to really identify what the wounds are and to take it forward to say, okay, I'm going to push through. I'm going to do this healing work. I'm going to do the release work, whatever it is, and rise above it. And that is one of the other things that I am certain of with what's happening, that the universe would not have created this situation unless it was supposed to. And it also means that this is an opportunity for us to evolve beyond where the circumstances are. Because, I say all over my website, it's not enough for me to help people heal. I want them to evolve beyond where they were and move even further beyond that. So this is where this is at right now. And yes, it's going to be worse before it gets better. And yet it's that soul's health that really is going to make all the difference.
In your soul health model, and you break down the 10 branches, One of the things that strikes me as interesting is it's an opportunity from looking at life from that perspective to really begin to take a look at where you fall for each one of those branches, because we have a tendency to take a look at our sum total and not really break things down. And there's
Yeah.
so many distractions that are out there to keep you from doing that.
Yeah.
So where does one start? How do you begin to take that evaluation?
And I think that is a perfect example because, there's not one branch on this tree that is not getting pushed right now. So, and everybody, yeah, everybody has a different aspect of what's getting pushed. And so, for a lot of people, and I just read today that were 10,000 more layoffs going to happen or, endings of jobs. I have worked in the educational field. So, the health administration, the education administration, all these things. I have lots of clients who are teachers or administrators. So there are different buttons that are getting pushed for
Mhm.
different people. And what I tell people is like, you have to look at your life like a hologram. So whatever is popping out most, or what button again is getting pushed most, that's the branch to look at first, because that means that the wounding is there. So yeah, we could get mired in every single one of these branches right now and go, wow, all of them need work. But it's the one that feels the most prominent that probably needs the most attention. And so, the anxiety and the depression are shooting through the roof right now because of everything that's going on. And yet that might not be the psychological branch, might not be what's causing it. It could be the financial branch.
Mhm.
What do I do to secure myself financially? I've got a lot of clients who are worried about their health coverage. So it could be health concerns. So it's really kind of a 3D approach to see which one of these branches is popping out in that 3D way for you to go, oh, that's the one that needs the most help. The other thing I will say is that most people that look at this almost automatically get a gut reaction to which branch it is that, oh, yeah, that's the one. That gut reaction is really the voice of the soul anyway. And so it's just that it's that gut, it's that, visceral reaction of, oh yeah, that's the
Right.
branch that
But
needs
we're
that
so
help.
used to compartmentalizing it or ignoring that. And that's a whole nother conversation as to why we feel the need to do that. There's got to be some kind of middle road in terms of how to make the changes or make the corrections to self correct so that you're not doing yourself harm in the
Right.
process. It does not
Right.
have to be a harmful, hateful, horrendous process. Okay,
Right.
that's my narrative for what's going
Right. Well, and unfortunately, I do say this, evolution never happens without discomfort,
on. Mhm.
because we have to outgrow something in order to grow into something new.
Right.
So this discomfort that we're experiencing right now is a lot. And yet, unfortunately, I do feel like there's a lot that needs to change, a lot that needs to grow, and we have to feel really uncomfortable in multiple ways in order for enough people to evolve beyond whatever is shaking them up to go, oh yeah, we don't want to do life this way anymore.
Which is one of the reasons why what you have decided to do is just so important. You have all this knowledge and you've done all this research and all this practice with your patients and your other colleagues around soul health model. But now you've come up with something that's going to enable others to get this education as well. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Ladies, are you ready to vibe your life? The V.I.B.E Wellness Woman Network is your go-to space for holistic health, empowerment, and community, created just for women over 40. Inside, you'll find expert-led workshops, wellness challenges, and exclusive coaching, and a sisterhood that supports your journey to being vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered. Join today and get access to fitness tips, spiritual renewal, menopause support, and more, all designed to help you thrive in midlife and beyond. Visit the VibeWellnessWomanNetwork.com and start your journey to wellness today.
Yeah, so actually there's two options. So I am launching a certification program for healthcare practitioners, coaches, administrators, educators to learn to do what I do. There's going to be so I'm really launching into teaching other practitioners and coaches how to understand the soul, how to help people get unblocked, because the two things that people struggle with the most are, what do I do with my life,
Mhm.
and how do I get unblocked? And so I'm training practitioners and coaches To understand the soul at a fundamental level, that's what level one of the certification is, to
Mhm.
really understand this model, understand how it reflects everything about the soul, how it works into any practice. I have actually a naturopath from New Zealand who is in the program that will be starting in a few weeks because she wants to know how, from a naturopathic perspective, the soul
Mhm.
influences her work. I have a psychologist, I have some therapists that are in the program. I have a CEO of a treatment center that's in the program. So it's really learning how to incorporate much more of a wider view, why things work and don't work in our lives, and how to get people unstuck.
It's interesting because you mentioned various practitioners from different modalities within that space of working with people. And a lot of people have the impression that soul has to have something to do with religion, but you're absolutely not approaching it from that perspective.
No, not at all. I tell people there are 8.6 billion people on this planet. Each of them has a soul, and they don't have to agree on their religion in order to understand that they've got a soul.
Right.
So, it's one of those things where that's why I try to really not look at this from a religious perspective, because our soul has an influence on every behavior, every action, every reaction, and every habit that we have. So it has nothing to do with religion. It has all to do with how our human condition works or doesn't work so well.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because the human condition, that is something that people have been talking about like forever. And now here is an opportunity to begin to take a look at that from a different perspective. Now, I know you've got level one, but are there other levels in this certification process?
So there's 4 levels of this process. And the reason for that is I've been doing this for years, and there's no way to pack everything into one level. This level one really talks about the soul health model, the ins and outs of the soul, how to understand what it is and what it isn't. Levels 2, levels 3, levels 4 help people actually tune into their own intuition to help people more and more. So I am certified as an Akashic Records reader. I do soul realignment work. I do past life regression work. So throughout these following levels, I'm going to teach more about intuitive work. I'm going to teach more about soul age and how soul age impacts whether or not a person heals quickly or heals at all. I'm going to talk about astrological personality because, wow, that in itself, I'm not an astrologer, but if you understand enough about astrological personality, it really helps you understand your clients or your patients more in order to really help them along.
What the propensity might be for them to have certain kinds of characteristics or personality traits or
Yes.
reactions to certain things.
Yes.
I always say to people who are naysayers to astrology, I said, well, if the moon can impact how the ocean flows, why then would not the sun and the moon and the stars impact a person's personality? I mean, because an
Right.
ocean is huge body of water, huge. Yet and still, the moon can impact the waves. It can impact which direction it flows. All of that. So why would that not
Yeah.
impact what our propensity to be a certain way might be when things are centered or moved into a certain way? I'm not an astrologist, but that just makes
Sure.
sense to me.
Yeah. So let me give you an example of that. So about a year and a half ago, I was working with an astrologer colleague of mine, and she said, well, we are about to basically get to a point where the stars and the planets are aligned in exactly the same way that they were during the American Revolution.
Mm.
And I said, oh, isn't that interesting? So, astrologically speaking, they knew all of this was going to happen.
Mm.
Another
Yeah.
very interesting tool is that Nancy Reagan actually used astrology to talk to Ronald Reagan about how to lead things in the presidency. People
Mm.
don't know that. There are actually lots of people, world leaders, who use astrology. So it's really a fascinating thing because, again, we think it's woo. I taught in a medical school. I was a professor at a medical school. I understand all of this, but I also understand that there are some very spiritual and soulful kinds of bits of knowledge that we can integrate into our everyday life that can guide us like crazy. It can help us in so many ways. This is really what this is bringing it all together to align it once again for the highest good. And again, it can seem very woo, but these certifications are about basically practical spirituality. That's really kind of how I'm looking at this for people.
So, what is it that you're hoping people will take away from this by getting these certifications?
I hear left and right that there's nobody out there like you. Where do I go? What I want is to teach the basics and the foundational information about this and have people take it into their fields and use it in the way that would be the most helpful for them. I'm not a naturopath. I don't, I can't ascribe to how this person might in the long run use this. So this is really about teaching the soul, teaching the aspects of the soul that are very practical and very useful, and helping people take it forward.
I love it. And you know what? I wanted to go back a bit for those who are listening on audio. What are the 10 categories or the 10 arms on the soul health tree?
Okay, so I'm going to list these off, and I want people to listen and think about, wow, yeah, that is a part of health, because people don't realize that until they really understand it. You have physical, psychological, which makes sense, social health. I also added in my model, I added interpersonal health, intellectual or occupational health, environmental health, financial health, spiritual health, sexual health, and recreational health. So when you think about those, you cannot be healthy if one of those branches is out of whack. You really can't. Now, the National Wellness Institute's model, this is how this, came about. I was introduced to the National Wellness Institute's model in I have to think about this. So it was 1993. And it's basically a circle that has 6 wedges, kind of like a pie. And it only had 6 components. But when I was learning about that wellness model, I was also jumping right into learning how to do therapy. And what I realized is that there were 4 primary components that were missing that were evident in everyday life when I'm working with these clients. And those 4 components are the intellectual health, financial health, sexual health, and recreational health. Now, when you think about those 4, who feels well if one of those is misaligned? But it's not mentioned in the National Wellness Institute's model.
Well, but there's direct correlations between that and how we are choosing to educate our young folks right now. The kinds of things they learn in school. They don't learn necessarily how to balance a checkbook. Recreationally, they've cut physical education and all that way, way down. Sexual health, that's just a big issue because we don't even like to talk about sex in this country. And what was the other one?
Interpersonal.
Interpersonal. So what is the difference between the interpersonal and the social?
So the social branch of health for me are kind of the warm bodies. They're the people, the animals, the kind of what makes up our social network. Because you can have a lot of those live bodies, a lot of those social networks, but have very poor interactions with them, the quality of those relationships. So I added the interpersonal branch of the model because of the fact that, again, it's the quality of those relationships. So the social has to do with what types of relationships we have. Are they partners? Are they family members? Are they friends? Are they colleagues? But the interpersonal has much more to do with the quality of the.
It's the quality of the relationships that you have.
Yes. I could spend months talking about interpersonal health, and that's the whole point. So I separated those out to make it very clear that you can have all these warm bodies, but none of them might be healthy.
Oh, absolutely. People from a social perspective think, oh, I have lots of relationships because of social media, which gives you a false sense of having relationships. But in reality, there's nothing interpersonal going on. When you take a look at the quality of those relationships, spending one-on-one time, getting to really know each other, removing the facade of filters and everything else, when you get right down to it, the reality is that many of our relationships are lacking interpersonal connection or the quality of the interpersonal connection. So those things you named, just right there, you summed up some of the main things. But I've been saying for a while that the United States, that we need an emotional or spiritual enema.
Right. Well, and my model is the only one that I know that actually has a separate component for sexual health. I think, the amount of sexual trauma we have in this country, in this world, and you cannot have sexual trauma and not be affected at a soul level. To me, that form of trauma is.
And that's something else that we don't talk about.
Yes.
Even now, people think we're talking about because you're seeing 2 people on TV have sex, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about sexual health. I don't even know how healthy that really is. I'm the same one you're watching that all the time. I don't see how it's adding to my sexual health. But
Right.
discussing some of those things from a traumatic perspective, we still
Right.
have issues with women coming forth when they've been wronged sexually, when they've been raped or physically
Right.
abused. We still are not honest. So, what's the answer? What needs to happen in order for society to start tackling some of these issues around the soul?
Well, number one, getting it back in the vocabulary. I think that's one of the biggest things is like the soul has like been left out of the vocabulary for centuries. There's something more visceral that is happening within us that cannot be solved by intellectual only.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the challenges is that a lot of the treatment that is out there is very intellectualized. There's not much depth in the treatment, whether it's medical treatment or even psychological treatment to some extent. So we have to go deeper. And, I think the other thing is just understanding the interplay of how the soul works, how we need to bring it back to life, really, and understand that a lot of our triggers, a lot of our reactions, a lot of our wounds that we have are very soul-based. And whether it's this lifetime or previous lifetimes, there's a lot of talk about ancestral healing right now. That is all about the soul. Ancestral
Absolutely.
healing is all about the soul. It's all about the essence of who we are and how that energy has been carried forth throughout the generations. And if people could just understand the umbrella idea of soul health, then we could actually go into the healing world much deeper and much more comprehensively, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Well, I know that you have some courses coming up, and I'm going to definitely air this before the 12th, but your very first maiden voyage class is
Mhm.
April 12th, 2025. So for someone that wants to register for those classes, where do they go?
Yeah, easiest way to do that is to go straight to my website at www.drkatherinetkelley.com. And then on the menu bar, you'll see the Soul Health Scholars tab. You can hit that, and basically it's under level 1. And then that will take you through the information. It'll give you more, it'll educate you about what's going to happen, in this course. And then also it'll lead you right to the payment key to go to the website where you pay, you get more information, you register, you put your email in, and then you're good to go. Almost every day I hear someone say, I don't know how to find someone like you
Right.
in Seattle or Chicago. And so to me, that's all going to change.
Well, Dr. Kelly, thank you for the gift that you are to so many people and to everyone who listens to you or reads the books. In the show page, you will see the direct link to the certification that she's doing now, as well as the link to some of her books that she just recently released on soul health and anxiety, soul health and depression. I really do think that the way she writes her, they're not only easy to read, but it leaves you feeling like, okay, this is something that I know I can address, or this is something that I want to address. So thank you so much for spending some
You're
time
welcome.
with us here on the V.I.B.E Living Program.
Thank you for having me back.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you who are listening. I try to find topics that I think might be a little bit different, but hopefully will give you a little bit of fuel in your tank to decide that you want to find out more. So always take a look at the show page, click on those links, and also take a look at the other wonderful podcasts that we have. I think right now on the V.I.B.E Living podcast site, we have over 150 podcasts that we've done, but overall, it's been hundreds and hundreds of podcasts. And let me say thank you for commenting, liking, and sharing and subscribing to the podcast. We're now in the close to top 7% globally of podcasts. That means somebody's listening. So thank you, listeners. I do appreciate you. Have a fantastic day, everyone. And don't forget to vibe.
Thanks for listening to the V.I.B.E Living Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.